All right. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to another exciting day in mathematics. And I'm going to go over the warm-up with you today, but by now I think most of you should have at least number 1 done. If not, you should start working on that, please. And hands if you need more time. Hands if you need more time. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause this, and I'll give you a little bit more time to finish number 2, and then I'm going to go over both of them. Okay? Go. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started with number 1. So for number 1, like I said, by now, we should be able to do those automatically. And for this one, our setup, once again, is the same. 3 lines down, 2 lines across. This is a rate problem, so it's rate times time equals distance. Okay, so the first part is the tailwind. So the tailwind goes here, and the rate, we're talking about 2 different rates, the plane and the wind. And we say that when the tailwind, it helps increase our rate. Is that correct? That's why this is P plus W. It increases the rate. The time it took for that trip was 1.5 hours, 1.5, and the distance was 450 miles. The second, or the return trip, it's against the wind. Against wind. Against wind. When we walk against the wind, such as today, right? It's P minus W, and it took 2.5 hours, and the same trip. And from there, we can write our equations. So from there, I write my first equation, which is P plus W times 1.5 equals 450. Before I rewrite the other one, I'm just going to simplify that by dividing by 1.5 each side. Therefore, we get P plus W equals, how many? 300? Is that correct? Okay. And from there, I write my second equation, P minus W times 2.5 equals 450. And then from there, I divide by 2.5, divide by 2.5. And it's P minus W equals 450 divided by 2.5. How many times does it fit in there? 180. 180. And now we can solve by elimination. These cancel. We're left with 2P equals 480. Divide by 2, divide by 2. The plane speed is 240 miles per hour. Is that correct? And then I'm going to use the top equation, P plus W equals 300. And instead of P, I'm going to substitute 240. Bring down the plus, W equals 300. Subtract each side, 240. And the wind speed was 60 miles per hour. Man, that's strong. And our statement, the plane's speed was 240 miles per hour, and the wind speed was 60 miles per hour. Thank you. Hands if you got that by yourself. Okay? Number 2. And yeah, by now we should be able to do these, and I know now I'm starting to use more decimals, and that's all right because you guys love decimals, right? Okay, number 2. Yes, you just didn't know. Okay, here we go. Number 2. for that one, suppose the pharmacist gets, wants to get a 50-gram of an ointment of 15% zinc. So what is the total that he wants to get? 15%, and the ointment makes 50 grams. Okay? However, he's going to mix, what is he going to mix? 10% zinc with 20% zinc. So these are my two mixtures. So make sure you point that out from the beginning, or else you're going to make a mistake setting up your table. So here we go. So 1, 2, 3, 2 across. This is our first mixture, second, and total. So what is our first mixture? 10%, then 20%, and that gives us 15%. All right, and once again, we're looking at zinc. We're looking at percentage, but instead of writing it as percent, we're going to use decimals. So 10% is written as 0.10. Do we know how many grams that came from? No, so we write X. This one is 0.20. Do you know how many grams it came from? No, so this one is Y. 0.15. Do we know where the 0.15 came from? Yes, it comes from the 50 grams. 50. This is the only time we multiply. So this is 50 multiplied times 15. So this is 0, 25, 0, 5. That's 0, 5, 7. 2 decimal places. So this is 7.5. And we're talking about ointment. And for this line right here, we're going to look at grams. So we're going to focus on grams. Did we know how many grams they went for the first one? No. So we label it X. Grams for the second? No. This is Y. And the total grams are 50. And from there, we know what to do. We write our first equation, 0.10x plus 0.20y equals 7.5. Our second equation is x plus y equals 50. And from there, we eliminate one of the variables. Which one do you want to eliminate? X. So therefore, I multiply this times negative 0.10. However, everybody look up. Couldn't I multiply this top equation times negative 10 to make this a negative 1? Everybody look up. Does everybody see it? This is 0.10. We need 10 of these to make 1, don't we? So if we multiply times negative 10, then we're going to get negative x, negative 2y, and negative 75. Does everybody see that? Kind of? Okay. But I'm going to do this part. Okay. So I'm going to distribute here so I can eliminate x. This is negative 0.10x, negative 0.10y equals to negative 5. Is that correct? Yeah, right? All right. From there, I can eliminate the x's. This one and this one. We're left with 0.10y equals to 2.5. Then at the end, I divide by 0.10, divide by 0.10. Y is equal to 2.5 divided by 0.10. We move the decimal over twice to get rid of it. 250 divided by 10, that's 25 grams. All right? And we write our equation, x plus y equals 50. And then from there, we substitute for y the value of 25. Bring everything else down. X plus equals 50. And then subtract 25. Subtract 25. X equals 25 grams. So I think the same grams for both. So for this one, makes it easier for our statement. The pharmacist used 25 grams from each mixture. And then you can finish off to make your blah, 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 blah. 10Q. Okay? All right. get a blank sheet of paper out, please. Title it, Completing the Square. Completing the Square. All right, so you got a blank sheet of paper out, and you title it, Completing the Square. Completing the Square. And it says, our objective for today, I can solve and graph quadratic equations by completing the square. Let's read it together. 1, 2, 3. I can solve and graph quadratic equations by completing the square. So we've already solved quadratic equations using factoring, right? Our GCF, and then getting the Power Rangers going, right? From there, or the diamond. From there, we solved it using the quadratic formula, which you loved, right? Yes, yes. Okay. So today is going to be a third way. There's two more ways, but today's a third way, which is completing the square. Completing the square. Okay? So here we go. We already know what quadratic equations are, so we don't need the Freyer model. Okay? Two variable equations, highest degree is 2, but we do need steps. This is one that has a lengthy process. Here we go. Write these steps down, please. Step 1, set the quadratic equation in standard form. Set the quadratic equation in standard form. Set the quadratic equation in standard form. Step 2, divide the entire equation by the leading coefficient. Divide the entire equation by the leading coefficient. Divide the entire equation by the leading coefficient. Step 3, eliminate the constant. Eliminate the constant. Eliminate the constant. Step 4, add b over 2 squared. Add b over 2 squared to each side of the equation. Add b over 2 squared to each side of the equation. Add b over 2 squared to each side of the equation. Step 5, factor. Step 6, take the square root and write two equations and solve. Step 6, take the square root, write two equations and solve. Step 6, take the square root, write two equations and solve. Copy that, please. As you're finishing up your notes, let's start underlining some stuff. Yes? Pretty much. Step 1, set in standard form. Set in standard form. Set in standard form. Step 2, divide by leading coefficient. Divide by leading coefficient. Step 3, eliminate constant. Eliminate constant. Step 4, add b over 2 squared to each side. Add b over 2 squared to each side. Number 5, factor. Number 6, square root. Two equations, solve. Square root, two equations, solve. Fairly simple. It's only, I think it's about 9-stepper, this one, but they're short steps. So once again, set into standard form. We already did that practice with quadratic formula, is that correct? Step 2, divide by leading coefficient. We already know what a leading coefficient is because we got plenty of practice when we got polynomials. Remember that? Step 3, eliminate constant. We know what a constant is, the number that comes at the end when we have it in standard form that does not have a variable multiplying. Number 4, add b over 2 squared to each side. We know what b is once we have it in standard form. 5, factor. And 6, square root, two equations, and solve. Okay? So, as you're finishing up, make sure you have all those steps. I'm going to go ahead and post example number 1. Copy this one. Example 1. Example 1. It says, copy the words, please. Just the instructions, solve by completing the square, check your answer. Solve by completing the square, check your answer. The equation given, x squared minus 4x minus 6 equals 0. X squared minus 4x minus 6 equals 0. X squared minus 4x minus 6 equals 0. Okay? All right, pens down, eyes up here. I'm going to go through the entire process just to make sure we got it. You're going to see it's very simple, fairly simple. But the reason that we need this process is because we're going to derive the quadratic formula, which we already know, but we're going to derive it completely using these steps, and I need you guys to get them down. Here we go. Eyes up here. Here he goes. Writing utensils down. Here it goes. Step 1. It says, set in standard form. Do we have it in standard form? Let's see. Yep, from highest degree to lowest degree and equal to 0. All right. Step 2, divide by the entire equation by the leading coefficient. What is my leading coefficient here? 1. 1 divided by all that is all that. So that's done. Are we there? Do I need to show you the steps? No, because we know that this divided by 1 gives me the same thing. Step 3, eliminate the constant. So here the constant is negative 6. To get rid of it, I do the inverse, which is what? Add 6, add 6. Do that step with me, please. And we're left with x squared minus 4x, leave a space, equal to 6. All right? So let's see, once again, step 1, standard form. Step 2, divide by leading coefficient, which was 1. Eliminate the constant. It was a negative 6, so we add 6 to each side, and I left the space here where the 6 was. Step 4, pens down, eyes up here. Here it goes. It says, add b over 2 squared. So first of all, by looking at this, what is b? Negative 4. Remember that? A, B, C. So b is negative 4. So what is b over 2 squared? It looks like this. Add b negative 4 over 2 squared. Write that down, please. Okay, and let's simplify it so we can rewrite our equation. Everybody look up. Let's simplify this. Here it goes. What is negative 4 divided by 2? What is negative 2 squared? 4. So we bring everything else down. The x squared, negative 4x, the plus, the equal, and the 6. What we just did there, guys, we completed the square. Now we have a perfect square. Pay attention. Pens down really quick. Check this out. Remember when I showed you guys expressions? I'm going to cover this up, and I cover the 6. Look at this expression. To check to see if it's a perfect square trinomial, what do I need to do? Square root, square root. What is square root of x squared? X. What is square root of 4? What is x times 2? What is twice as that? Is this a perfect square now? That's how you complete the square. What we just did, these 3 steps, makes us complete the square. But we need to solve the equation. Here goes the next steps to solve, so pay attention. Okay? So, next step, it says, we're done with step 4. Step 5, factor. Let's see. Since we know that this is a perfect square, I can factor it 2 ways, using the Power Rangers or using my perfect square trinomial. Let's see. Square root of x squared is x. Square root of 4, that's 2. Let's see, x times 2, that's 2x. Times 2, that's 4x. So therefore, my 2 factors are going to be what? X minus 2 to the 2nd power. You guys remember that? And all that equal to 6. Copy that. For those of you that didn't see it, I'm going to do that again over here, but with the Power Rangers. Okay, so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Okay. So there were only two patterns. There were only two patterns that we were looking for when we first started with quadratic trinomials. We were looking for difference of squares or perfect square trinomials. Is that correct? Since this is a perfect square trinomial, that's why we write it like this. Are we there? Now, for those of you that don't see it, here it goes. Imagine I don't have this. So the next step here was to what? Open two parentheses. Is that correct? And I factor out the first term. Get my Power Rangers going. What goes on top? On the bottom, -4. Factors of 4 are 2 times 2, but both of them have to be negative, and when they multiply, they give us a positive, so these are two, what? Negative, so this is x minus 2, x minus 2. What's another way of writing this? X minus 2 squared. You guys see that? So once again, if you don't see this, you need to get you need to go revisit that lesson of perfect square trinomial so you can remember the pattern. Okay? So check this out. So I'm going to go ahead and skip this. I'm going to erase it. Now I'm here. So check this out. Did we factor? Yes. At the end, take the square root. Everybody look up. Take the square root. Then I write two equations and solve. So check this out. To cancel this square, the inverse is to square root. Whatever we do to one side, we do to the other side. However, did I skip a step? Yes, I did skip a step. I needed to add the other side, didn't I? Sorry. Check this out. I'm sorry. Sorry. Didn't we add here b over 2 squared? So that means here we needed to add -4 over 2 squared. So this is plus what? Plus square root of 4, which is, on my bad, which is 4. So therefore, I bring that down. Thank you, Ty. So what do we have here? 10. Okay, now square root of 10. All right? So this cancels this. What do we have left? X minus 2 equals square root of 10. And when we take the square root, we know it's a what? Plus, minus. However, can we solve for x yet? No, I need to do what? Add 2 to each side. X equals 2 plus minus square root of 10. From this point, two equations. Is this a perfect square? No. So we are going to leave it as a root so it can be exact, right? We're done. Here we don't need to do two equations. If we were to do two equations, let me write them out so you guys can see them. What would be my first equation? X equals what? 2 plus square root 10. And what is the second one? X equals 2 minus square root 10. And these are my roots. Pretty lengthy, yes? Okay. All right, so once again, here goes the entire process. Step 1, standard form, yes. Step 2, divide the entire by leading coefficient, which was 1. We're done. Step 3, eliminate the constant. Here we go. I added 6 to each side. Step 4, add b over 2 squared to each side of the equation, which I had forgotten, but there it is. And then we simplify it. From there, we factor. We do the square root, square root. It's a perfect square trinomial. There it is. And then from there, we take the square root, write two equations, and solve. But since it's not a perfect square trinomial, we cannot solve that, all right? It stays as a root. Do another one. Here we go. Example 2. T squared minus 8t minus 5 equals 0. t squared minus 8t minus 5 equals 0. 8t. 8. All right, here we go. So let's do this one together. Step 1. Is it in standard form? Yes. So we're done with that. Step 2. Divide by the leading coefficient. What's the leading coefficient? 1. So therefore, we don't need to because it stays the same. So we're done with step 2. Step 3. Eliminate the constant. So what do? Add 5 to each side. Add 5. Add 5. We're left with t squared minus 8t. Leave the blank space equal to 5. Step 4, add b over 2 squared to each side. So what is b here? Negative 8. So we're going to add negative 8 over 2 squared to each side. Add negative 8 over 2 squared to each side. Let's simplify that. We write t squared minus 8t. What is negative 8 divided by 2? Negative 4 squared, that's positive 16 equals 5 plus 16. We'll simplify it on the next step right there. So, step 5, factor. What is square root of t squared? T, square root of 16. Let's see, t times 4, that's 4t, double that. Does that give us 8t? Yes, so it is a perfect square. So all we need to do is what? Look at the sign. So what goes here? Minus, and this is squared equal to what? 5 plus 16, that's 21. Yes. If this was, everybody look up, if this was to be a plus 8, what would this be? A plus. Yeah. Remember that pattern? Okay. Okay, let's continue. What cancels the squared? Square root, and whatever we do to one side, we do to the other. So that's why we do the square root. So let's see. This cancels this. We're left with t minus 4 equals plus minus square root of 21. We need to get rid of that 4, so we add 4 to each side. T is equal to 4 plus minus square root of 21. And if I was to ask you to write two equations, it would be what? T equals 4 plus square root of 21. And what is my second one? T equals 4 minus square root of 21. And what are those called? Roots or zero. Those are my solutions. Got it? Let's do another one. What's that? Okay, check it out. Last one. Here we go. Copy this one. Example 3. 3x squared minus 5x minus 2 equals 0. 3x squared minus 5x minus 2 equals 0. Let's go a little bit faster on this one. Let's see. Step 1, standard. Is it in standard form? Yes. Divide the entire equation by the leading coefficient, which is what? So therefore, we divide the entire equation by 3. So we're left with what? X squared minus 5/3 x minus 2/3 equals 0. Yeah. Yeah. So that now eliminate the constant. Yeah, that's the third step. Oh, step 2 is divide the entire equation by the leading coefficient. This one has a coefficient. Notice the other ones did not have a coefficient. That's why it was 1, and that's why we went to the next step. Okay, so this one. To eliminate the constant, what do? Add 2/3, add 2/3. Let's finish this one really quick. And we're left with x squared minus 5/3 x plus, oh no, I'm going to leave a blank there, equals to 2/3. Then it says, add b over 2 squared. So what is b? 5/3. So now check this out. 5/3. If we divide by 2, what do I need to do? Multiply times 1/2. So this becomes plus 5, 6 squared. Are we there? So far, so good? All right, so now check this out. Let's simplify this, and we add that to each side. 5, 6 squared. This becomes, check this out, so that we don't do the extra step, square root of this, square root of this, that's x minus 5 sixths squared equals, this is 2/3 plus 25 over 36. Do we know what to do from there? Yeah, square root, simplify that. And hold on, let me write your homework down. Homework found on page no, it wasn't 595. It was on page, oh yeah, 595, my bad. Through 2 through 40, every other even. All right, guys, have a good one. Enjoy your homework. I'll see you guys tomorrow.